Hello guys, welcome to the video. As you can see from the title, it's not a very cheerful video and well, this YouTube channel is kind of like a place where I share my thoughts that are worth sharing. Not subjective or personal opinions. There are some personal opinions which I put forward in some videos, of course, but those are clearly presented as personal opinions, and those are still opinions on topics that may be of general importance because that may be useful to you. Now the point is, it's also kind of like you could say a journal I maintain, like a diary I maintain in digital form, in video form, which I also invite, well, basically anyone, because it's public, it's YouTube, to take a look. But it's not like I'm forcing you to believe me or watch my videos. If you want, you can watch. But what's even more important for me is that it's like a record, and I can take a look back into my own trajectory, what I used to think at that point of time in my life, and then how did it evolve, and that kind of stuff. So that's really important to me. And at the same time, if that helps, or if that kind of sparks your curiosity or some discussion, which sometimes it does, even I don't care how many of you are watching, even if it's 1 or 2%, that's good enough for me, because I don't have to pay huge sums of money to upload to YouTube. uh, so what I want to talk about in this video is about, as you can see from the title, I have nothing to say and it's worse than hopelessness. Well, first of all, what am I talking about when I say I have nothing to say? Nothing to say about what? Well, about nothing and everything in a way. So what I was thinking for the last few days, and there certainly have been many instances, many, not just for the last few days, for the last few, forever, if you think about it. But especially this is really like I started thinking like this, started hitting me in the last few days. That's what I mean. Uh, we talk a lot about rights, what is right, what is wrong, what is morality, what is ethically acceptable, what is morally acceptable, even what is law, what is legal, and corruption, rich people getting away with terrible stuff, that kind of stuff. And at some point we basically our argument, it becomes circular, because we cannot do anything better than to just try to convince ourselves that no, there must be some justice. Some people go to crazy lengths. Some people will say that no, there is heaven and hell, there is something after death, justice will be served after death. And some people are like, they inwardly know that, well, the situation is not going to change. There is nothing they can do. We are all powerless. We ordinary people, we are powerless. So you could vent out your feelings on social media, or like I'm doing, create a YouTube. I'm not venting out my feelings, by the way. I'll be sharing some, let's say, if I put it that way, some observations regarding this situation, my personal observations. And those will not be very happy observations. I'll not be speaking for or against anyone, because when we're talking about something which is a crime, which everyone knows is a crime, there is no point in speaking it out loud, because that's not going to change. It's not in my power to bring the criminals to justice. So if I just shout or rant about what a horrible crime it is, that's not going to change the situation. Many people are already doing that, and I completely agree with that. But I just don't want to create another video and waste some digital resource, like waste some, let's say, a video on YouTube just by doing that, because, well, yeah, we already know that. And if you doubt whether those things are crimes or not, then I think you belong in the same category. So it's no good trying to convince or trying to have this discussion with you in that case anyway. I hope none of my viewers are like that, but I just yeah. The thing, what I've been thinking about is that if you think about this, like from a very detached perspective, just for the moment, forget about the present, like what's happening right now. Because if you think about this, this is not just special or unique to the present. This has happened from time immemorial. There were dictators, there were kings, there were people who were doing whatever they want just because they had the power. And look at history, those people were not brought to justice. Yeah, of course they died in an old age, like we all have to die. Or first of all, even history is written by the people in, so history is shaped by narratives, and those narratives are the narratives that are pushed forward by the people in power. So even history is not like completely trustworthy for that matter. But yeah, we all know that most of the criminals who are influential and powerful, they have not been brought to justice. And that brings the question, what is justice? Because like I said, I would like to have a discussion from a very detached perspective. So instead of picking out names, because currently one or two, or let's say a few names have been like doing the rounds on the internet, and for very good reasons, like very powerful people, presidents of countries, politicians, tech giants, and the criminal himself. So I mean, you know who I'm talking about. But this is just no, I don't want to bring that up, bring that particular name in the video, bring that particular topic in the video, because I believe this is a recurring pattern. So I'm not in any way saying that this is not important. This is really very important, and definitely one of the most disturbing. Like, this really shows how much pervert a human being can be. But at the same time, it's a recurring pattern. So we should be questioning not just this particular incident, but the entire system that we have created, and why these kind of let's say organizations, criminal organizations, criminal networks survive for so long. Like, what is there in the system to sustain this kind of organizations? And even now that it has more or less everything is public, up to a large extent, everything is public, even then the people in power, they are facing like little to no consequences, except one or two media stories about like criticizing them, like they care at all. So that's the point. What is justice? Like I said, well, and that's what brings me back to the title of the video. I have nothing to say, and it's worse than hopelessness. Because in this video, I want to say something which is even more radical than usually ranting about justice, injustice, crimes or not. I want to say that I don't know what is justice. I cannot define justice. And for all practical purposes, I think anyone who tries to come up with a definition, even a working definition of justice, well, there will be lots of loopholes in that definition. And that's why I said I have nothing to say, and it's worse than hopelessness. If I had a mental model of what is justice, what is, how to deal with these things, then I could have said that I really feel hopeless, because currently the situation is, it's not how it should be. But at least I have a mental model of how it should be, and then in the future, or hopefully this situation will resolve and we will improve. But I don't even have that, so I have nothing to say, and that's why I think this is even worse than hopelessness or that kind of thing. So what I mean by that is that, well, of course I could like speak about justice in I could speak a few lines about justice that most sensible viewers, most sensible humans would agree with. And I could try to make it I could try to dramatize it by shouting and stuff, like. But I won't do all of that, because there are many other creators already doing it, and that's required for some extent. I just don't want to be redundant. That's what I'm not saying that's not important. I'm not saying we should always be detached, because what's happening right now is definitely more relevant than what has happened in history, let's say 100 years back. But yeah, of course, from an objective standpoint, both are like important, let's say, data points from which we can draw some inference. So if I say that the Holocaust is not important because it's like it's over, it's almost like so many years back, it's not important right now, that's not true. Maybe of course it's not as relevant right now as the current news that are coming up. For instance, the war crimes all over the world, Iran, then I mean I don't need to name the countries, it's more or less, I mean I could go on, the US, and then for instance the what I was talking about previously, the Epstein files. So these things have more relevance to us now, definitely. Objectively, they are more relevant, because all these things are happening now, or in the case of Epstein files, they were happening in the past decade. Holocaust, World War II, well, that's long back. But that doesn't mean that the lessons we learned from Holocaust, or as a pattern, as a data point, that's not important. That's still important, right? So the past doesn't well, I mean, you know what I mean. So looking at all of this, what I would like to say is that, well, first of all, by justice, I'm not talking about providence or any kind of divine, like God or any. Of course, some people will say that no, see, that's why Hitler had to die. Well, as if Hitler was a good person, he would be immortal. So, these kind of arguments really didn't hold up. If someone is if someone who is like a billionaire and has a lot of money, lot of power, if they abuse their power and do this kind of pervert and like absolutely despicable and disgusting kinds of crimes for their entire lives, and let's say they spend a few years in jail for the last few days, for the last few years of their life, and then they die, then that's not providence to me. That doesn't prove that there is that they were punished, because even a normal person had to die. The only thing is that, well, yeah, in the end, their story came out and their reputation was down. Is that providence to you? Like, do they even care about their reputation? And the victims of the crimes, does it change anything for them? Their lives are destroyed, like irreversibly, once and for all. Their everything has been damaged. So just because the criminal has been brought to light, and even after being brought to, this is even more saddening, this is even more disheartening, heartbreaking, that even after these names are being brought to life, they're brought into light, into the public view, there is no consequence, because simply because we are powerless. The best we can do is some like make videos and stuff, and even then they will be silenced. If someone wants to go too far, then they will be silenced. That's how it is. So I really don't know what to I mean, that's why I said. So if you ask me to define justice, I mean, what I was thinking of discussing, I'll also I had discussed similar arguments in some of my previous videos, and also with a few of my close friends and colleagues, most of whom were like some of whom agreed with me, but some of whom like, that's really dark, urban. I know it's dark, but that doesn't mean it's, I feel it's true, and that's why I'm saying this. But if the truth is dark, that doesn't mean I should not say the truth, because that would amount to, like gaslighting in a way. So that, yeah, I mean, what I believe is that, of course, justice, morality, even law for that matter, is a social construct, is a human construct. It's our construct. It has no objective, like objectively you cannot define these things. Of course, I know that. Because, for instance, in animals, in case of animals, if one animal kills another animal, even of the same species, we don't say that they have done something illegal, it's a murder. Animals don't run on constitutions and laws and stuff. Why it was even required for humans? Well, because there are of course a lots of reasons. We cannot just attribute this to one particular reason, but for me personally, I think it's because humans are way more complex from an evolutionary point of view, from a biological point of view, than animals. And from evolutionary point of view, human babies need prolonged care, and that's why there was a need for some mechanism of control and regulation within humans. Like, humans cannot go mating like animals, and for human partners, even after the baby is born, we need to, the father and the mother needs to stay together, that kind of thing. For that, we have this thing which we call love, and that led us to form these social, norms and stuff, like marriage, legal agreement, like to stay, spend the rest of our lives together, blah blah blah. Point is, that was all an evolutionary construct. Then humans have a higher degree of emotional regulation, stuff like that. So even if you're feeling overwhelmed, even if you feel like hitting someone in public, you don't usually do that. If you're a normal, of course there are, like, if you're not normal, if you are have some mental disorders or something, it's a different thing, and it happens, of course. But at the same time, on average, in general, humans have a much higher degree of regulation than animals. So the question is, why was it even required? Because we evolved from animals, and there was clearly a requirement. And to exercise this regulation, there was a need of something like, in fact, personally, this is why probably religion came up. Of course, religion, it doesn't really serve the purpose that it was, that it doesn't really serve this purpose anymore. In fact, right now I think religious does more harm than good. But if you think about the origin, like, why did even the idea of religion come up? If we go back to the very first humans on earth, they were just living in jungles and hunting and doing stuff. So why did they, think about religion? Well, because there was some, if things were not written down in a book, like a religious text, and people were not made to believe that they had to follow these, otherwise, they will be punished after their death, they'll be punished in hell and that kind of thing, then that's just then people would just do whatever they wish, and there would not be a stable society, there would not be no regulation, that's it. Yeah, of course, we this is like in our blood. If you question a religious person very, like, strong enough, deep enough, maybe they would at one point admit that no, even they don't really believe that there is something called a past life or afterlife, or death and that kind of thing, or gods and stuff. But it's like, it's the easiest thing to believe that, and that also, that on one hand, that helps them regulate themselves, and on the other hand, that also can do the opposite, that can help them use religion as excuse to abuse their so-called, power and that kind of thing. So it's a double-edged sword actually, but I think it originated because of this. But then, of course, as with most other thing, it doesn't usually, it moves well beyond the purpose that it was created to solve. And often those are not in good directions. These extensions are not often in good directions. For instance, artificial intelligence, the same thing with religion. But and then slowly as we became more rational, more scientific, really, there we did constitutions, countries, laws, legal stuff, and that kind of thing. The point was for to regulate, because I think that's why you will find that the rich people who have enough money, enough power, enough influence to get away with these crimes, they still choose to do the crimes. Okay, let's for a moment, let's assume that I'm a billionaire and I have enough influence, enough money to get away, even if I do something like horrible. Now, would I do it? The most honest answer would be maybe, like, well, right now I would like to say no, because, but if of course I would like to say no, because if I say yes, then you will say that I'm a potential criminal. But if I think from a detached third person scientific perspective, because I cannot really know how it feels like to be a billionaire and with that much power, because I'm not a billionaire, I'm not that influential, I'm not that powerful. So if I were, then what would I do? It's not really possible to make a comment on that. But personally, I think the answer could be no and yes. I mean, yes could also be a very possible, like very likely outcome. The reason is that humans are bad by nature. I mean, bad in the sense humans are cruel by nature. Humans are like animals by nature, simply because we evolved from animals. I'm not saying that, I'm not making a moral statement. I'm not saying that this world is doomed. Yeah, well, in a way it is, but right now what I'm arguing for is not that humans are bad, we have lost it. No, we have not lost it, we never had it. Humans have been like this from the very beginning. I'm not saying that our ancestors were better and we are slowly turning inhuman. No, circumstances are changing, so the manifestation or the degree of manifestation of cruelty, inhumanity, maybe that's fluctuating, that's increasing, that's decreasing sometimes, mostly maybe increasing. But I'm not saying that humans, I mean, not really. If you go back 200 years and all those riots, all those, the kings, the oppressive regimes of dictators, monarchs and kings, people were very cruel back then. There were war crimes. People, I mean, the kings and they basically did whatever they wanted with their, with their kingdom. They killed innocent people, they killed their opposition very ruthlessly. There were wars, there were bloodshed, there were war crimes. The soldiers, like they killed mercilessly. Even for instance, crimes like, women of other countries were raped by the soldiers of the other countries. Those things are like pretty, that's not really nothing new. So if someone says that we are losing our humanity, I would disagree, because we never had humanity in the first place. What do you mean we are losing our humanity? As if in the past we were much more. Not really. That's Yeah. Right now these things feel very pressing to us, like the issues I discussed about, the current situation. Those are more relevant to us. They carry a greater importance, greater weight in our minds. That's why it feels like. So we don't, because we don't know what it was in the past. We don't have a first-hand experience, or maybe it was not really that better back then. Even from what limited account history has to offer us, it doesn't sound like a very cheerful time to be alive. And so that's why I think, instead of let's just think about why. Because we came from animals, we evolved from animals. So those animal instincts, like, those are the base instincts in each and every individual, you, me, the ordinary people, as well as the people with money and power and influence. That's the base, the base instincts. That's the substrate, and you cannot replace the substrate. You can cover the substrate, you can weaken the substrate, you can suppress the substrate by adding, maybe repressors or other kind of stuff on it, but you can never really completely delete the substrate, because that's where we are from. If you delete it, you delete the human race as a whole. You cannot do that. That's encoded in our biology, in our instincts, in our hardwired instincts, in our genetics. You cannot really get rid of that. Yeah, of course we're evolving, and that's why you see, like, most humans are, they have some amount of regulation. That's why these things are not as mainstream. That's why, I mean, so we do have it, but those are like social constructs, and those are constructs which were necessary even from an evolutionary point of view, because of the way humans operate and stuff. But at the same time, those are less fundamental than these instincts, because these are much older instincts, the primal, ancient, ape like instincts, if you know what I mean to say. And that's the reason. So we, all of us, have that hiding underneath us. And the reason people like you and me do not allow that to get out is that we are ordinary people. We know that if we do that, there will be consequences, because we are ordinary people. We are not powerful, we are not billionaires. And we care about, because this is also a social and evolutionary element to it, we care about peer pressure, by not exactly peer pressure, we care about what other people think about us, because as social creatures, that's an important point for us. So, and that's why, but that's the thing. So when you rise to a very, like, position of power, influence and money, basically you have the power to get away with law, with anything. So these things, these regulations become weaker, and that's when your primal instincts take over, because it's there in all of us, in you, me and everyone else, basically. And when I think about that, well, what is the solution? Because of course this is not this we cannot let this happen. Yeah, from a scientific point of view, we understand why this is the case, but that the understanding why this is the case doesn't mean accepting it. I mean, no way accepting this, of course. This is one of, like, this is a very like I said already, I don't have words for it. I should, I feel like swearing at the moment, but at the same time, swearing wouldn't solve the problem if I just use one or two, like, very hateful comments. That's very deserving for this kind of activities and this kind of criminals, but again, that's not going to solve the problem. And well, many people are already doing it, as I said, so I don't want to move into that direction and spend, let's say, 10 or 20 minutes on that, because that would be no new information for you. But of course, these kind of we need to do something about it. This is not okay, we understand that scientifically there is this reason that, okay, maybe most humans have these instincts in us, but that doesn't mean that, okay, we should just let it happen, because, well, then essentially we are pushing ourselves back to ape mode, and then after a few points, well, there will be, like, basically everyone will be doing whatever they want, and things would be extremely destabilizing, and that's not really what we want. And well, that's when I again come back to my title. I have nothing to say. If you ask me, then what do you think could be done to potentially solve this problem? I don't want to sound like a pessimist. I really still hope that there is some solution, but I have devoted quite like a lot of quite a good amount of thought to this matter, and I have no answer. I have no answer that I can, like, I have a lot of suggestions, but looking at the way things are going, and looking at history, and looking at the other people and the world around me, I'm pretty much sure none of these suggestions are going to work in practice. So these are not solutions. These are not at all solutions. That's why I don't want to. But the point is, this is like it's really, for me at least, I find myself in a position of dilemma in a way, because I choose to live my life as a human. So in a way, I'm kind of endorsing humanity as a race, and I'm choosing to live my life as a human among the species, some of which did crimes like this. So it's really, in a way, feels like I am endorsing this. Not really endorsing, but it really feels like I should do something more about this. But at the same time, so this is where the dilemma comes in. At the same time, realistically, what can I do? Like, as a physics student, as a researcher, and I have tried to do, and I not tried to, I also do a lot of stuff. For instance, mentoring high school students, having my, like, founding a platform that can publish the work of high school students for free, because I really know what rejection feels like, and what this traditional gatekeeping feels like in science. So that's why the current academia, even in academia, this injustice thing is there. In academia, it's not about this kind of crimes, but this injustice is still there, because academia is all about gatekeeping science from original and new ideas, even if they're scientific. I understand there are lots of independent researchers, quote unquote independent researchers, who have no affiliation and who kind of try to publish crackpot papers and that kind of stuff. I totally understand why. But at the same time, if it's a paper from a big group like familiar names in a familiar lab, and a big group where, like, a paper has 20 or 30 names, and it's like, but it's the same science, maybe a little bit of manipulation, and it's the same thing, nothing new, nothing original, but that's easily accepted into journals and stuff. And if it's a paper by someone who is doing original work, doing real science, has a real affiliation, but maybe it's an independent work. I mean, the person is not an independent researcher in the sense that he has a real affiliation with a real lab, but the work is a bit not mainstream, and that's why you are the only author of this paper, you don't have a big name beside you, plus the work is not mainstream, so we're going to reject you. That's traditional gatekeeping in academia, and that's why I mean, so this is unjust. This is not just. This is not fair. And then we ask, why is science stuck, and all that kind of thing. Now the point is that, so I try to do something about this, especially at the level of high school students, because I have been a victim of academic gatekeeping, academic rejection, and this kind of thing. So when someone of my caliber, I'm not saying this to sound like, I hope you don't take it the wrong way, but by now I have enough evidence, and, well, someone of my caliber, if I really chose to work on some traditional problem in some big group in a lab, I could have 3 or 4 publications. Like, I could have smuggled my name into 3 or 4 papers with 5 or 6 or 10 authors easily. Instead of doing that, instead of focusing on supervised and traditional work, I have done, like, if you take a look at my research page, research web page on my website. Maybe I'll drop the link in the description if I remember at the time of uploading this video, or you can just take a search, my Google me, or take a look at my website. It's not really difficult to find. You will see the kind of work I have doing. I've been doing mostly. There are some really, like, authentic like supervised work. Just so that you don't think I'm a crackpot, I do have real affiliation and working on real problems. So called your scientific problems, which are mostly traditional problems, by the way. And also I have done some original work, independent work. Like, for instance, built new phenomenological models from the scratch, not worked on some extension or that kind of thing. Built everything new from scratch, but at the same time tried to do it in a mathematically rigorous manner. I'm not saying these works are complete works, but at least I've tried. So, because I know what rejection feels like, and I could have chosen the easy path, but I still chose the difficult path. And, well, there are pros and cons, especially if you want a long-term career in academia. It might sound impressive to you, because for me at this age, I've been doing so much. But long term, if you think about your career in academia, then choosing my path, it has its both pros and cons. I'm not saying this is not for everyone, really. But the point is, since I have faced rejection and what it feels like in this particular case, in this particular context, that's why I found the motivation to create the Journal of Young Physicist, or write a popular science book in physics and mentor young students, because I know what it feels like to get rejected, and I don't want people to stop choosing science because of this gatekeeping, this current system's gatekeeping. But I have not been a victim of that kind of crimes. That's why I really don't. I can imagine what it feels like, and it's really I feel sorry for the victims, but I think what those victims need is not pity. What they need is respect more than pity, because they have been through that and they have not signed up for that. They were lured into that. They were manipulated into that kind of thing. So they're not weak. They're not stupid. They were gaslighted. They were lured into that. So we shouldn't be like, "Yeah, I really feel sorry for them. I really feel sorry for them. Oh my God, I wish you recover from this." Why do you feel sorry for them? It's not. They have been intentionally, by some powerful individuals, they have been intentionally uh, been made victim to this kind of situation. It's not like it was a misfortune, it was a unfortunate happening that, okay, it's really unfortunate but it's really bad, I feel sorry. No, it was intentional, it was deliberate. So what we should do is we should respect those victims, at least the ones who are choosing to speak up despite all of that. We should respect them, because those guys, those particular girls or women or whoever, they are way more strong than you and me. Because I mean, at least for me, I'm not sure if I was, I mean, I'm not a woman, but for instance, just for comparison, if I was put through that kind of experience, I'm not sure if I would have survived that. And many people did not survive, by the way. And I'm not saying that they're weak. They were the victims of because this is intentional. That's what I'm saying. It's, if it was a road accident, you could have felt sorry for them because it was an accident. But this is not an accident. This is intentional. So this is really a wrong kind of attitude to this kind of victims that I feel sorry for. What they need is not pity. What they need is respect. What they need is recognition that even after all of this, they are surviving. Maybe they are not doing great in life, of course, because of course they have taken some permanent hit, permanent damage, but they're choosing to live up even after all this. So they deserve some respect, and they deserve some, they are actually inspired. For me, for instance, I'm inspired by them. Honestly, I don't feel sorry for them. I don't cry for them. I don't think they deserve sympathy. I think they deserve recognition, and I think they deserve respect. I think they need, and not respect in the sense like cringe in a way, like people are pouring their hearts on social media. I really feel sorry for you. You are strong. Not that kind of cringe kind of respect, or maybe you give them a medal or the kind of some award ceremony, that kind of thing. They deserve real respect. They deserve real recognition from the world, from as many people as possible. That's what I believe. And there is a very great difference between pity, and even if your pity is coming from good intentions, that's not the right attitude, I believe. You don't need pity to pity these victims, because they are not responsible, and it's not even an accident. You need to respect them. You need to show respect to them, because they are indeed an inspiration. But at the same time, I also cannot help but feel a bit hopeless, because, well, if you're honest with ourselves, we more or less we know that the powerful people, well, there's going to be no consequences. After 2 or 3 months, we would likely forget about this, or maybe this will survive in the news and the social media. But the real people, they would not be behind bars. They would be walking in the free and with their head held high, and they would not even care. That's it. And people like you and me will feel bad about it. Maybe some of us will do videos on this, but nothing's going to change in reality. you know that's the I don't, that's why I say I don't know what to say. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. Of course, scientifically we understand. For instance, in biology, the selfish gene. So there are, I mean, the way nature has wired us. For instance, just to give you an idea, uh, some of you might think that, especially if you have not thought, like not read about this deeply, you might think that the survival of the fittest, Darwin's interpretation, survival of the fittest, is just that the fittest survives and evolves and is selected naturally to pass that set of genes to their offspring. That's not really true, because there are, for instance, in colonies of ants, or not just ants. I'm not really sure about the biology, like about the particular names or details of the species, but across many species, it has been observed that there are some particular. I think in bees, like working bees and that kind of thing, there are one group of species, I mean one group of one group who can, their sole purpose is to sacrifice themselves for the survival of the babies or the next generation, that kind of thing. So if it's just survival of the fittest, if evolution just wants all of us to individually maximize our probability of surviving, how can you explain this kind of behavior? It's not even like, it's actually survival of this of your specific gene. So it's like this, that's why it's called the selfish gene. There's a very famous kind of phrase, the selfish gene. It was popularized by Richard Dawkins, and, well, I think by Richard Dawkins. I'm not really sure about the facts, by the way, but the point is, what evolution is really trying to do is make sure that the fittest genes survive. So the competition is between genes, not between species, not between individuals, but between genes. It's in a way the survival of the fittest genes. There are many, for instance, in one species, I recently heard this, and I don't remember the details, like the exact name, but there are some species which, during mating, the I think the female cuts the head of the mate of the male, because it's nutritious, and because just to optimize the behavior of mating, because then I don't exactly know the reasons, because I have not really looked up or don't really recall all the details. I'm not a biologist also, by the way, but across nature, across many animals, you will find this kind of behavior, which to us would appear to be very cruel. But nature doesn't care about cruelty. Nature cares about, like, just optimizing this algorithm that the fittest gene survive. So cruelty, morality are all human constructs, and I'm not saying that these are meaningless, because without cruelty, without morality, well, I mean, you can understand what would happen. Humans would be worse than animals, and that's not really the life we want. So they are meaningful. They are even objectively meaningful for us as a society. We really cannot ignore them. If we continue to live as humans, we have to, abide by morality, because it is important. It's objectively meaningful for us. I do agree. But from a very fundamental scientific viewpoint, from the point of view of evolution, well, then it's really a human construct. It's really meaningless from that perspective. And now I think I should stop here, because I gave you a lots of perspectives, and now what to make of this information, that's your decision. That's your decision. I have nothing to say, because I don't have something. I don't even have a personal opinion to give you. By the way, it's not like I have not formed a verdict, because forming a verdict on these kind of issues is really difficult, almost impossible. I should say, but leave alone verdict. I don't even have a personal opinion on this, like what should we do, because I don't care. I mean, okay, maybe I really hope that these people are brought to justice, but then after 10, 20, 30, or 50 years, I'm pretty sure this kind of thing will repeat. And this is happening all over the world, by the way. These names have come into the public, but do you really think that there are like millions of people who are engaging in these kind of criminal activities? You don't even get to know of them. All over the world, in many countries, like you don't even know, like not all crimes make it to the news, make it to the headlines. So yeah, so, well, from a realistic point of view, it's really unfortunate, it's really sad, but at the same time, I don't think it's ever going to stop, because this is what humans are like. And as for solutions, well, we cannot negotiate, or we cannot argue with evolution, with nature itself. What we can do at our level, at individual level, is really you know cultivate this habit of, because I mean, charity begins at home. And if you think about it, if you look at all the people who go wrong, especially from an early age, they usually, in most cases, they have a history. The For instance, the kids who are homeless, or let's say who take drugs from a young age, I think in almost all cases, if you really investigate thoroughly, they have a history of, let's say, the parents were not really supportive. They didn't have a proper upbringing in their childhood, or maybe they fell into the wrong group, wrong peers, that not wrong friends, that kind of thing. But mostly always there will be I mean, people don't start taking drugs from age 13 or age 14 for no reason at all, right? And this is a kind of like a vicious cycle. Once you enter these kind of networks, you cannot really break free. If you want to break free, you'll be killed, basically. That's it. So if you ask how to handle these issues, how to take care of it, well, there are a few things we could do at the individual level. Of course, this is not going to solve the problem globally. This is not going to solve the problem overnight, but at the same time, these things are really important measures. That's why I'm mentioning them. First of all, we should stop sympathizing with the victims, and we should give them respect instead of pity. They don't want more pity, because they're not victims by choice. They are victims by planned manipulation from powerful people. They didn't choose to be the victim, so they don't want sympathy. They don't need pity, they don't need respect. This is just a small change in the attitude of the common people, but I think this is important, and this might, for instance, if I were a victim like them, I would really hate if people kept showing me sympathy, but I would like, so I'm saying from that perspective, maybe this is something we should think about. And this is something we could do, at least at our level, because again, charity begins at home. Maybe this will have little to no impact on the global level, but well, it's still a good thing to do. And next thing is that we could, well, this is again like kind of throwing stones in the dark, because on the long term, at the global level, this is not really gonna have a long impact, and this is really, again, really, it depends a lot on the circumstances. So speaking this in a video is really easy, but I mean, what I mean to say is that this is way more easier said than done. But what I was about to say is that we should cultivate, especially in the present generation, what I find, the young generation of today, the current generation, what do you call that, Gen Z and all that kind of nonsense. What I mean by that is that we should cultivate some humility in them, even more than kindness, because in my experience, in today's generation, what obscures kindness is not cruelty, but but kind of unjustified ego. Well, you could argue that in a way ego is much similar to cruelty, but well, I would beg to differ, because I think this cruelty is an inherent trait, and I don't think that people in today's generation, today's teenagers, for instance, they're inherently cruel. I don't really believe that. Maybe by some objective physiological or even psychological measures they are. I don't know. I'm not an expert. But I think what plays a more important role than cruelty, at least in my personal experience, is this ego factor. Like today's generation is under a lot of pressure to perform, and under a peer pressure of that my classmate is already doing this, I have to do that. If I cannot do that, I have to find some excuses. And number one, there is this performance pressure, and often stress turns people to bad things. For instance, drugs. That's one thing. Next, we have, and of course, in this kind of society where AI is taking away jobs, there is no stable job market. In academia, well, getting a PhD is like fighting for your life. I mean, it's natural. Just to stay afloat, you have to fight. So this tendency is like you cannot really erase it in the current system, because we have way more people than jobs and that kind of thing. The situation is getting worse day by day, so it's natural. But maybe a little measure could be to normalize failure instead of success. This is something I keep saying in my videos. I've said this, I think, multiple times in multiple previous videos, that the current society is built in such a way that it rewards success. So if you do something successful, if you have an achievement, people are going to like your posts, or people are going to like appreciate you, congratulate you. But nobody talks about the failures that come before the success, because no real success can be just like a, yeah, I was talented so I am successful. No, it's not true in my view. You don't get it right by being talented. Trust me, I have lived through this. You don't get it right by being talented. You simply get it right by being wrong multiple times and still choosing to play. So by being in the game long enough, that's the only way to succeed. It's not talent. Talent doesn't make sense. Even talent is not, I think talent is like a meaningless word. It doesn't really make sense. It's just a qualitative description of one's cognitive abilities. But if you use talent in this context, I think talent is meaningless. It's hard work, effort, and also patience, which is very difficult, because this system is built in such a way that it's built to disreward. I mean, it's not really built to reward the really original and creative thinkers. So it's very likely that he will run out of patience, and he will like, I have had enough. Let me just choose a normal job, or let me just take drugs, or let me just end this life. This kind of frustration. It's very normal, by the way. But if you really choose to stay in the game for long enough, even after multiple failures, if you keep doing, that's the only way to succeed. I mean, there are no guarantees, but at the same time, if you really love what you're doing, if you enjoy the process, who cares? You don't need to get a Nobel Prize. You just need, and yeah, so yeah. But for that, we need to normalize this from a very young age. From the young generation, we should tell them that you shouldn't be afraid of failing, because yeah, not just in those kind of cringe motivational quotes way that failure is the pillar of success. No, not that kind of thing. We should actually actively encourage them to speak about their failures in public, even if it's like a, let's say, small kid, let's say a class, a standard, I don't know, in India we call them class 1, but in general what I mean to say is that just uh, kindergarten or middle school kid, or even younger than that, let's say a kid 5 years or 6 years old kid. Even at that age, we could encourage the students, the kids, to like talk publicly among their friends or with their teachers, that I tried understanding this, but I couldn't understand, and it was a failure. But they should, uh, I mean, we should encourage, because they are kids, they don't know what is there. We are basically training them to optimize the things that the society rewards. But so if we instead stop rewarding only success, but also rewarding the process, the failures, normalizing that, then people would not, for instance, turn to drugs or crimes even when they are stressed out. This is very important. This is a very subtle change, but if it's possible to implement at a large scale from a very young age, I think there will be like really good consequences on the topic that we were discussing, these crimes and all these things, especially the young people being lured into crimes and the bad company. I think there will be lots of changes. But now, so some people are born in a very unfortunate circumstances. They are born in, let's say, a criminal gang or something, or they are like they cannot get out of the gang because of some constraints that we all know, that kind of stuff, blackmailings and stuff. It's really difficult for them, and personally, objectively, I don't think it's possible to erase all of this from earth altogether. But again, in the same spirit of charity beginning at home, we can those are the 2 points I wanted to discuss. Number one is, well, like I said, normalize failure from a young age, and number two is the first point that I said, the learn to respect the victims and make them feel heard, and like they should feel that we are inspiring people. They shouldn't feel like we are the victims and people are just putting as sympathy. Because just think about them. What are they thinking? Why was it me? What if, for instance, I go to one such girl and say that I really feel sorry for what you have been through? What would she think? That it's, why was it me? Why was it not the next girl? Why was it not you? That's what they would think. That's not the right attitude. That's why I think pity is not really the right thing. It's respect. If I instead say that, you really inspire me, that even after all of this, I respect you a lot, and you inspire not just me but the next generation of potential victims, then they would feel valued, that no, I went through all of that not just for pity, but that had some objective value. That's inspiring. And that's the least we could do for them. Of course, what they have been put through, there is like no, I mean, there is no going back. They have been wronged, and that's a fact, which is very unfortunate. But this is the least we could do, not as compensation for the crimes. There is no apology, there is no compensation, there is no excuse. But this is the least we could do for them. I mean, and yeah, apart from that, well, like I said, we should really inculcate this culture of, because what I find in today's generation, today's young generation mainly, is that first of all, lack of patience, which is kind of obvious, with the short attention span, video games, digital things, even drugs, for instance, in some parts of the world. So yeah, lack of patience is not really surprising, but yeah, this is a very, very serious problem, and like I said, the ego problem. So we always try to create stories out of mundane things. For if someone just tells you a normal thing, maybe a friend, just a friend teases you. It's not really, the intention was not to hurt you or emotionally hurt you or do something, but just a small teasing or a very small incident, which 50 years ago would be just, both of you would be laughing about it. But today, you try to paint yourself like, I was a victim of verbal abuse, and you write a long social media post, you post it on your, I don't know, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, Facebook if you have it. So that's the thing. So what you are really doing is that, and you kind of try to make the world believe, make society believe that you really cared about human rights, and like you are so brave that you stood up for your things. That was not even verbal abuse. You are just, you have nothing to do, you have no real work to do, and you are not competent enough to do real work, for instance, and that's why you, but at the same time, all of us wants fame, all of us wants to feel validated by society. So you have your social media, and you just want likes, so that's why you create a sensationalized story. That's it. Many people do it. The real victims are this kind of people. For instance, the crimes we're talking about, like the actual crimes. And yeah, verbal abuse is also a crime if it's a real verbal abuse. But often it's not even, like, maybe someone just jokes. Yeah, if it's a really inappropriate joke, then you should speak out. But sometimes it's not even that. So I mean, what I mean to say is that not every little incident needs to be blown out of proportions in the social media and to create more noise. Because the people who are reading that post, maybe most people who are using Instagram and Facebook, and anyway, like, they don't have brains, most of them. LinkedIn is also going down the same path, unfortunately. So yeah, I think this comment holds also true for LinkedIn to a great extent. Point is, these people, just by reading your emotional post, they will get triggered. Maybe they will like, they will repost, but all you are generating is you're creating more noise. Just because LinkedIn doesn't charge you for posts, or these social media platforms doesn't charge you for posts, because again, they're getting money from the people using it, from the people who are addicted to it, of course. Just because of that, you shouldn't really waste people's time and people's feed and digital resources, or even like space on the platform, by posting about this kind of shit. Speak about what really needs to be said, not about don't try to play the victim card, and just for this kind of small issues, and create a, because, why I'm saying, because people out there cannot take the junk. I mean, they don't have what it takes to filter the junk. They're just like you, and that's why you are creating junk, and they're consuming junk, and it's like more and more noise. But what the world needs right now is clarity instead of noise. I think any sensible human would agree with this statement. And those who would disagree care more about their Instagram followers than real situation. So well, I don't really think we should be having a discussion with that kind of people in the first place. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So today's generation, and this is also kind of like an escaping tendency. We have not only less patience, but also less tolerance, less endurance than the older generations. We cannot take a joke, we cannot take, if someone, like, we cannot take, if we are a failure, if we fail an exam, we cannot take it. We have to blame the professor, we have to blame the university, we have to paint a victim story that no, the professor did this intentionally with me because I was blah blah blah. Why? Our ancestors were not like this. They didn't care about like exams and stuff. You see why? Because we have normalized success, and we have made the young, from a young age, we have made the generation believe that failing is not an option, which is bad, really. Because failure is the only way to success. That's true. That's not just a motivational quote. That is true. But unfortunately, that only remains on our walls as motivational posters. That we never really train the young generation to think that way. We only say that, yeah, you should, failure is the pillar of success, memorize that. But in real life, we no, you cannot fail, you have to succeed. And this is creating a stress, and that's why today's generation, they want to create a small issue out of everything, so that they can, act like we are successful, we are speaking out in social media, we are active, we talk about human rights, we are a responsible citizen. And I didn't really fail, but it was like a conspiracy against me. No, this is the thing, you are creating excuse, and you are, in a way, you are creating noise, you are creating problems, so that you can claim that, see, I'm busy solving these problems. But none of them are real problems in the first place. Those are problems you created just because you don't have what it takes to deal with the real world. You don't have what it takes, what to do when shit gets real. You don't have what it takes to deal with real problems. That's the thing. I have faced with this kind of, to some extent, especially in academic circles, social media, toxicity, trolls. I don't really, respond or I don't like give a shit about this. I don't engage. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. I do have LinkedIn, but I don't engage with this kind of activities. And well, I mean, this is really, but I do observe a lot on LinkedIn, not on Instagram or Facebook, because I don't have those. But on LinkedIn, I observe a lot, and even in my, for instance, in WhatsApp, or in some other places, this is the pattern I'm seeing in today's generation. And that's really, I think that's part of the reason why we are kind of like, I don't know. But in the end, I would like to end with, this time I would not like to end with a hopeful comment, because after the discussion we had and all of that was true, I really don't think that was a very hopeful perspective, but that was something that needed to be said. So that's why I'm uploading this video in the first place. Well, I don't know. I just feel like that there's a very famous saying, which, that the hell is really empty because all the devils are loose on earth. Now, scientifically, I don't really know why would we would expect there to be no devils on earth. But just dropping the science for a moment, this line really feels very true in today's world. That hell is indeed loose because all the devils are loose on the earth. So yeah, it's really a dark world we live in. And if you, I wish you, whoever you are, I wish everyone, basically, even whether you are watching or not watching this video right now, I know you have what it takes to deal with this. And anyway, you have a few years to live, 70 years, 80 years, I don't know. The best option is to just live your life, don't get into bad things, and just do your part, no matter how small. You don't have to worry about creating big impacts, but just do your part in fighting against these kind of things. And I know you have what it takes to do that. I just hope it comes out in the right time and in the right way. And well, first of all, mad respect to all the victims of all kinds of crimes ever. Not just, I don't want to name any particular case, but mad respect, because you guys are the inspiration. You guys show that you have what it takes to because, for instance, the people who are pitying you, but the people who are saying that they feel sorry for you, if they were in your position, they wouldn't be alive. So you are way more stronger and way more powerful than them. And that's why I respect you. I do not pity you, I respect you. And I hope we all survive this, and we all, I don't know, I don't really want to be the physicist for a moment. I just hope we end up in a better place in soon in the future. Thank you for watching.